To observe the political situation in Thailand, today the government has announced the extension, the probably possibility of extension of state of emergency. And of course, there is some voice raising concern. How do you see implication of this extension?
Okay. This kind of experience in Thailand is just only the copy of the experience I lived in Lembong and El Pais. The way that people, go against the government adopting or further the emergency measure is more or less the same. What happened in Spain? The opposition said that you need not further the emergency because it become dictatorial. So in a way, Thailand and all the other experience the same. On one hand, the government said that you have to be careful about the corona. We have not yet get rid of the corona. So be careful, there could be the second wave. So in this thing, we need what we call a centralized power to make sure that we can, for example, preempt what happened. But on the other hand, by centralizing, some people say that we are rid of what we call liberty, freedom, everything. You can use another kind of law, for example, the disease prevention law, something like that. But the government said that how could you, because disease prevention law is not so strong enough. We need what we call a centralized one. Otherwise, we could not, for example, preempt what will happen in the future for the, for example, the second wave. So this is the rhetoric, that is repetition of what happened in politics in Western world and also in Thailand. And after this one, the rhetoric will go further because some people say that by using what we call emergency on behalf of what we call the disease prevention, some country, just perpetuate that kind of use for what we call the political gain. I can give you an example. In Poland and in Hungary, that is more dangerous because our emergency law is limited, as the government said that we will limit it within the timeline that we can prevent. But in some other country, the timeline is not limited. So there will be a lot of more political conflict due to what we call the corona, depending on each government dealing with the people and the not only people, the opposition and the people, and some other people is not the opposition, but they are so bored of what we call the living of the freedom. So some people, for example, in Spain, those who protest, in Spain, is not the poor, the rich man, woman, the upper class. Every night they just rang, for example, the siren every night to make sure that the rich also is more with what we call the limitation of freedom. So this kind of thing, I think, will be repeated, not in other countries. If, for example, the situation prolonged, I expect that the political problem will expand not only through what we call the opposition, but the patience of the people at large.
But Ajahn Somchai, we understand the concerns of the critics of the government. But as far as you can see, do you think the emergency decree has been abused in any way by the government to silence or to affect the critics of the government, the opponents, the political opponents of the government in any way?
Okay, to say in one way, if we are government, okay, and you have to look at the what we call the nature of the government. If the government have an upper hand, for example, look at what we call some other country like Cambodia, Russia, or even Poland, the government have an upper hand. In this case, they can say that, okay, I will prolong, I will use even abuse to a certain extent. But if you look at our government, I don't think that the government is so strong with what we call the very thin majority. But of course, they have other, for example, force behind the scene. But anyway, the government is not so strong as what I mentioned with other one. So the government under Kun Prayut Chan-o-cha have to take into account what we call what the people think, what the opposition, but more on the people's side. So this case, they know that if they have so strong, why don't they, for example, adopt the constitution They use other means by, for example, prolonging through what we call the Senate and everything. Use the what we call 5-year transition. That is because not so strong. So they have to go other way. So in this sense, I expect that the government will try to loosen as, for example, in the future, but they have the opportunity to use what we call discretional. If, for example, the corona prolong, they can say that, okay, I'm not going to hold on, but it is necessary. So there must be what we call a credible pretext in order to prolong, because there is not so strong that to go, for example, what they want. So the pretext is depending on how they, for example, deal with the corona. Okay, so I expect that once the corona go, I don't expect that the government try or will be able to prolong the emergency and to prolong this kind of dictatorial, for example, stance. Fortunately for the government, the corona gives the government, for example, a certain time for breathing. Otherwise, because without the corona, I expect that there will be a lot of protests, for example, among not only the opposition, but also with what we call the progressive movement and some other people. And this month is the 10 years of what we call what happened in 19 May, the so-called the red shirt violent clash. So if it not were for the corona, I would expect that while we were discussing about the political situation, there will be a lot of protests in Bangkok and elsewhere.
Yeah, maybe because of the emergencies decree also, right?
Yeah, of course.
And Dr. Somchai, tomorrow the Parliament will have open sessions tomorrow, and next week there will be consideration of the loan, of the law regarding the loan. What's the scene are you foreseeing of the tomorrow and next week?
Okay, you look at you read the comment by the opposition leader, 27 and 29. Okay, and the session will be divided between two groups, half by the government side and the half by the opposition. So they said that why don't you prolong the time frame, because it's very short. Let's take into account the full economic stimulus decree is very important. So we need some more time. But anyway, I don't think that the government want that time frame to prolong, because what they need here is that to get to work with the decree, because the situation warrant a speedy execution of the fourth decree. So anyway, because of the majority of the government, though it's slim, but it's solid enough to overwhelm all the other, for example, opposition. So I expect that there will be a lot of, for example, rhetoric, okay, discussion, debate, or a lot of, for example, conflictual speech. But anyway, if you pass like any other law that has been passed during this legislature, because of the majority held by the government, though it is very small majority, but it's solid enough to get over all the opposition. So I don't expect anything from the debate, just only what we call the rhetoric that we will see in the parliament, that's all.
Yeah. So we shall see the quite heated debate on the executive decrees, which will happen next week.
Yeah. But it is very interesting in a sense, the four decree altogether sum up what I would call the strategy to fight the corona. The strategy to fight the corona need two-pronged strategy. The first prong is try to, for example, to stop the expansion of corona. And the other side, by stopping the corona, we need what we call a stimulus package. And the stimulus package must be uh, uh, must be considered into different package. The first package get the country economy back to normal. We call this one normalization. But the normalization will be upheld or must be possible given that we can control the corona. So the government must be work in a very delicate balance between preventing, uplifting the lockdown, preventing the second wave. On the other hand, they can use the package in order to inject enough stimulus liquidity to make the economy function again. But what is more important is that in functioning this one is like a cripple. I call this one wobble. Wobble is like Thai ขากระแพง. It's wobble because after the corona, a lot of business go under. There will be a lot of problem. Secondly, there is also the problem that we need to compete with all the other. Given the change of what we call the technology and also the corona is not the cause of the problem. It's the symptom of what we call the change in technology that come up with what we call the natural disaster, the pandemic and all the other. For every country like Thailand, need to have what we call another strategy, not only to go to the what we call recovery, but we have to recover with stronger enough to compete in the future. So what is more important is not this package. This package is 1.97 trillion. Is used only for what we call the recovery, But we need another package to make sure that our economy will be normal and be strong in order to compete with what we call changing. That is the more difficult strategy that the government have to adopt in the future.
Dr. Somchai, I'm sure that the opposition is trying to read the moods of the public so that they will know exactly how far they can go or they should go in attacking the government over the royal decrees, right? So, but as far as you can see, Dr. Somchai, you think the way that the government has been handling the pandemic is in favor of its image, and it does it in any way that would help with at least the public perception of the government's capability and efficiency?
Okay. If you look, I will give you for up top. This one is just only the perception, but the perception must be based on certain factual figure. Look at one thing: how the government handle what we call the corona crisis. Thailand, is considered to be one of the best to handle this one. Look at the number of infected, number of death. We are for example, in the first 5 best country. So this one, no matter what happened, the perception of the public, what the government, I think, I don't say that everyone, but will be quite satisfied. First one. The second one, look at what the lockdown, for example. The lockdown, of course, create a problem. For example, a lot of unemployed, a lot of business go bankrupt, and people, have problem. Even, for example, have nothing to eat. So this one, of course, there's a lot of outcry. But if you look at the government have already adopted 3 stimulus package. The last one is 1.97, and 1.97 how is all the decree. The first 1 million and 1 trillion. The first 1 trillion is divided into 600 billion. The 600 billion is the 600 billion is used to help, for example, 5,000 and to alleviate the poverty, alleviate the problem people. So at first they said, I will just give you some 10 million. At the end, 5,000 spread to all categories. So of course people are not content, but at least they have got. Okay, for them. The second one, for example, the 400 billion will go to, for example, to help people who go back to the provinces, to help the agriculture and everything, in order to make the economy recover a bit. That is one. The other 900 billion is divided into 400 to preempt the crisis of the capital market by helping, for example, the debenture. Otherwise, because the debenture, one you could not pay for the debenture, something like that. It could spread from the corona into the capital market. So the government know that. So by creating the fund to help, for example, redeem this one, will preempt the spreading of the problem. And the other 500 to give the soft loan with a very low interest rate to help the liquidity, not only the SME and LD. If you use all this factor, 9.97 is about 10% of GDP. So it's quite a large number in this sense. So if I consider what the government, I think that the government has done quite enough to in both a package, healthcare and the economy. But of course, enough considering the gravity of the corona, we are not yet sure that that is enough, because the corona, we don't know when will stop. So of course, even this kind of thing, there will be a lot of people that still, for example, request more and more. That is natural in all the others. So what the government have to handle more is that they have to prepare, for example, first of all, they have to make use of the 1.97 trillion as effective enough and speedy enough in order to make sure that there will be less and less claim. But of course, the second package that the government need to do is prepare resources to help, for example, our economy go back to normal and with a more healthy economy. That is a more difficult problem that the government have to encounter in the future. So far, I think so far so good. But of course, there will be a lot of people are not content. It depends how you stand. If you are poor, with this one, how do I live this one? Of course, a lot of people. And this one is not because of the corona, but because of the problem of the government of Thailand. Because Thailand, for so long, the past government and this one have not yet, for example, tackle the problem of equality. 1% of GDP occupies 60% GDP. What we call the household debt is going up to 79% to GDP. But if with the GDP declining, it's more than 79, and the highest in ASEAN. So there is a problem that has been plaguing Thailand, dogging Thailand for so long. So this one is the corona is just the symptom of what already happening. So with this one, with the package, a lot of people say that it's not enough. But this is not because of the package of the government, but the problem has been lingering for so long and need the government to tackle seriously in the future.
That's true, because the pandemic only highlights the chronic problems that we have been facing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the other problem is the monopoly. The monopoly is go, hand in hand with what we call the 1% of GDP occupy 66%. So these two problems go along all together. So this one is the task that government that need to handle in the future in order to avoid what we call the political problem in the future.